Oh, oh, it's time to be filming. I'm sorry. This whole thing is very addictive. I have been listening to music prior to filming this video. We're going to talk about books with the musical themes. Greetings, my name is Nina. Welcome back to the Metal Book Tavern. I think that if you have been following my channel for a while and watching my videos, you know already that I'm also a sort of a music addict. I listen to it on a daily basis, well, almost every day. Yes, I can believe it. There happened to be days when I didn't listen to music for some reason. Still, music is my go-to almost every day. And since I read a lot and I have two channels dedicated to books, I decided to count books that have musical themes. Okay, this video is going to be divided into two categories, non-fiction first and then fiction. Non-fiction, of course, includes biographies of musicians, and fiction is about books with musical themes. I have already made such a video back in 2022 in spring, and now I decided to remake that video. Well, because I have more recommendations, especially non-fiction, because in that old video I recommended only 4 books, and now I'm going to recommend 9. And of course there is more fiction too. So I think that if you have seen my videos, you know already that I am predominantly a rock and metal girl, and I read biographies of rock musicians. And the very first biography that I read, the very first one is Bohemian Rhapsody, the definitive biography of Freddie Mercury by Leslie Ann Jones. Leslie Ann Jones is a journalist that toured with the Queen, and in this book she goes through Freddie Mercury's biography, his upbringing, his success with Queen, and life after the success. It's full of its ups and downs. It's a very touching biography. However, if you want a biography of Queen, it's not exactly that biography, well, because it after all covers Freddie's life, and Queen is just a part of his life and not even the biggest part. Yeah, the book mostly focuses on his personal issues rather than his work with Queen and solo work. Queen and solo work, they are a big part of the book as well. Yeah, it covers everything about Freddie's life. If you are interested in Freddie Mercury's life, yeah, definitely recommend picking this up. One thing about this biography is that it can be read even if you are not a big Queen fan. I guess this is more a biography for mass audiences rather than big fans. On the next book, I have an entire video about it on my channel. If you have seen my videos, you know which one. And it's one of my favorite books, and this is A History of Heavy Metal by Andrew O'Neill. The book is about what it says on the cover. It's a history of heavy metal as a genre, the genre as a whole. So the book covers the roots of heavy metal. It is often said that heavy metal started in 1970 when Black Sabbath released their debut album, self-titled album. Not only does this book start with Black Sabbath, this book also has chapters dedicated to the roots of heavy metal, the blues and so on. And since this book is written by a comedian, there are a lot of funny moments too. I have a lot of tabs because there are a lot of funny moments here. Okay, let me read something to you what he writes about metal. Heavy metal is capable of immense complexity and sophistication. It operates partly on an intellectual level. Its ideas, lyrical themes, and dazzling virtuosity tickle the highest parts of the brain. Heavy metal makes people feel really, really good. Heavy metal encourages escalations and sensitivity decreases through contact. Metal is addictive because its extremity produces an extreme psychological response. It's true that metal is a very addictive music, which is kinda ironic given that it was made mostly by people who were addicts themselves. Sure, they weren't addicted to good things, but at least they made a good thing we all can be addicted to. Heavy metal is addictive. I can never stop talking about this part. Okay, yeah, finally, I found what I wanted to read after some minutes of search. No, I can't. I can never stop laughing at this. Go to any big metal show. I actually wish to go there one day. Go to any big metal show and you will see a mix of the die-hard long-haired patchy denim types like me, and also the short-haired, boring, trousered metal at weekend normal types like you loser. Thank you so much for calling me a loser, Andrew. This is exactly what I needed. Okay, yeah, I know that this phrase is mostly aimed at men. However, I'm a normal looking girl and I thought that this would apply to me too, because yeah, I do look casual. Anyway, this is a very funny book. The author is unapologetic in his choice of words. He really doesn't like Lars Ulrich. Sit down, Lars. Yeah, okay, calm down, Andrew. No need to be so harsh to Lars. Okay, this is my recent read. Never heard about this book before I entered the bookstore and saw it. And the book is The Uncommon People, The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars by David Hepworth. This book is mostly analyzing the phenomenon of rock stars. There are chapters dedicated to certain very big musicians, well, mostly rock stars. David Hepworth analyzes what made them big, what impact they had on the audience. It's not necessarily about the music, but more about the attitude, the lifestyle. And let me read the very first sentence in the introduction of the book. The age of the rock star, like the age of the cowboy, has passed. The idea of the rock star, like the idea of the cowboy, lives on. In short, rock stars are those people who are larger than life. They do extraordinary things, they meet extraordinary people, and they adopt extraordinary things and views and so on. They are very uncommon. They are so extraordinary that even those people who are close to them, they get to be extraordinary. I mean, they're so big. However, the author thinks that the age of the rock star started in 1950s, I think around 1955, and ended in 1994 with Kurt Cobain. Okay, one downside is that maybe younger generation wouldn't know the certain musicians mentioned in the very first chapters. However, as the book progresses, you would encounter those rock stars that you have heard about, like Elvis Presley, Ozzy Osbourne, Kurt Cobain, and others. And some musicians mentioned in this book aren't necessarily rock musicians. I think there was a chapter dedicated to Madonna and Michael Jackson too. So this book is basically an analysis of the rock star phenomenon. Now the next book I gonna confess I didn't finish because it was very dry and full of facts, but I am considering rereading this book eventually. I'm just not a huge fan of this band. However, I do want to go back to the band one day, and when I do, I want to read their biography, and the biography is When Giants Walk the Earth by Mick Wall. This is a biography of Led Zeppelin. I just really like the cover. It's a very big book. It's 550 something pages long. I can definitely tell you that this is the book that got me into a reading slump. So this is basically a detailed biography of Led Zeppelin. The author goes through the biography of each musician, how they came to be, their management, their phenomenon, their lifestyle, and everything. Absolutely everything. The book is definitely full of some dry facts, but if you are a Led Zeppelin fan, I mean a very huge fan, this book is definitely for you. Now, of course, that since they were all rock stars, they crossed ways with some other rock stars and other notable people. And of course, this book covers their rock and roll lifestyle. I think that you know what I mean when I say rock and roll lifestyle. Substances, wild behavior, and so on. I'm gonna confess this is partly the reason why I wanted to read this. And of course, this book also covers their songs. Also, one important thing in this book is that it doesn't simply cover everything about Led Zeppelin. It's also about this late 60s and the 70s. I mean, this also covers a time period they lived in. the society in the 70s, in the late 60s, yeah. And now comes the biography I would recommend to absolutely everyone, whether you are his fan or not. And the book is I Am Ozzy by Ozzy Osbourne. This is one of my all-time favorite books, the autobiography of Ozzy Osbourne. So this book covers Ozzy's life up to 2009, because 2009 or 10 was when this book was released. And he covers everything here, from his upbringing in Birmingham, England, his rise to fame with Black Sabbath, and also the time when he used to work, and also his addictions and everything, and dismissal from the band, and rise as a solo artist, and everything. The book is written in a very light manner, and it's also very fun to read. Of course, there are a lot of very sad events happening in the book, but the book is still written in a way that they're still fun to read, and I really like this edition of the book so much. One thing about Ozzy is that he's brutally honest about his past mistakes. He's honest here very much, and he does really admit his fault. Yeah, I did something really wrong. I shouldn't have done this. He acknowledges that he was wrong in certain moments, and he also acknowledges the fact that this is how he remembers things. It says that, surprisingly, despite the lifestyle that he had, Ozzy had quite a good memory, as he managed to write this book. Ozzy writes that they thought that he wouldn't manage to write the book, but yet he did, and I'm holding it in my hands. I recommend this book not only for Ozzy fans or Black Sabbath fans, but I also recommend it to regular people who know nothing about Ozzy. And just like with the biography of Freddie Mercury, the band that made him famous is a big part, but it's just a part. It's not the main point of the book. And now come two books that are definitely mostly for the fans. I can't say that I'm a fan of either of these bands, but I did went for the biographies, and I got them. So the first one is Enter Night, Metallica, the biography by Mick Wall. I bought this book in August 2022, and at the time, Master of Puppets was everywhere due to Stranger Things season 4. Sure, I did think of that scene involving Master of Puppets in season 4 when I bought this book. Well, so this book also, like any other biography, covers biographies of each musician, their rise to stardom, and everything. However, while reading this book, you would think, these people are really insufferable. Yes, they did a lot of very stupid, really toxic things in the 80s. Yeah, definitely out of all biographies that I read in this video, this was definitely the biggest emotional roller coaster that I read. Okay, in one of my previous videos, I showed this notebook where I wrote my honest thoughts about books. And when I started writing, this was the first book that I began writing about, and I have a lot to say about this book. The only reason that I didn't was that the people in the story were real, and I didn't want to trash the real people. And just like with When Giants Walk the Earth, this book is also about the time period where the band became famous. In this case, the 80s. This is also about the thrash metal scene. It's also their opposal to glam metal like Motley Crue and things like that. But it also goes from the 80s to 90s and to the 2000s. Yeah, just like I Am Ozzy, this book was released in late 2000s or 2010. And just like with the biography of any other big band, there was a big rock and roll lifestyle. And of course, this book also covers the songs as well. And the next book about a big band is Come As You Are, A History of Nirvana by Michael Azerrad. I've never heard about this book until I entered the bookstore and I saw it there. And one huge difference between this book and all the previous books that I have shown here is that this biography was written very fast. So all of these books that I have shown here, all of them, these books cover decades of the band. And this one, however, was released in 1993, while Nirvana was around 6 or 7 years old. It covers only a few years compared to the bands that I have mentioned. You'd probably think that this biography was written, well, because Kurt died. No, this book was released before his death. And this edition that I'm holding in my hands, this edition, it holds an afterword added by the author after his death. What this book is about, the biographies of musicians, their songs, the time period they grew up in, and the popular music genres at the time. Of course, the rise of grunge and things like that. All the same things like with other bands, but with Nirvana and the grunge style, and there's less rock and roll lifestyle here than in the other books that I have mentioned. I really like this cover. I like how it's very, very blue. Yeah, I know that this is in accordance with their Nevermind cover, and I like it a lot. And next comes the biography that managed to really anger me. It was a very addictive biography though, and it's The Dirt by Motley Crue and Neil Strauss. So this book has chapters from the perspective of each member, both past and present. Yeah, I think that if you have seen my previous videos, you know that I really, really hated Motley Crue while reading. I do want to admit that I felt a little bit uneasy while reading The Dirt. Well, not because of their lifestyle, not because they were the wildest and most obnoxious and insufferable rock stars I ever read about, not because of that, but because the whole glam metal scene doesn't mean anything to me. So in here we have the biographies of Led Zeppelin, Metallica, and Nirvana. I don't listen to them on a regular basis. I rarely listen to them. However, I am familiar with their music. I listen to some songs from time to time. I have favorites in my all-time favorite songs playlist, and in short, these three bands, they mean something to me. Motley Crue, on the other hand, and the whole glam metal thing, they meant nothing to me. Absolutely zero knowledge on the topic whatsoever. And I'm not a fan of glam metal at all. Okay, I did listen to one or two Motley Crue songs, and they are quite good. They're still not my thing. Sorry. And this biography really angered me, well, because too wild, even by rockstar standards. I know that The Dirt became a Netflix film. I've never watched it. But I'm still glad that I read The Dirt. So the book is written in the first perspective, well, because it's an autobiography, and all members, they have chapters. Each member has their own story. Each band member, they have their own issues and so on. And there's a little bit less about the music and more about the lifestyle that they led. The book was released in 2001, so it covers their life up until late 90s and 2000. And now the next comes the biography that came out in 2023. I completely forgot about the biography. It's the first music biography that was about the pop star rather than the rock or metal star. It's The Woman in Me by Britney Spears. I never thought I would read the book. Yeah, I know, shocking. However, I found the audio version, listened to a few minutes, and then fell down the rabbit hole and I listened to the book. And so this book does cover Britney's life, her upbringing, etc., but it also does a very good job covering her music, what it means to her, and etc. And then came the chapters with the conservatorship, or how you say the word, and these chapters were basically an existential horror to me. I was listening to these chapters and these chapters made me tremble. You know, I never liked Britney Spears. I still remember how my cousin tried to force me to learn her songs and I hated her and I'm still don't like her music. However, when I found out that these things happened to her, and I did really feel sorry for her, and as I know that she does well now and it's good for her, it's good that she got out from the conservatorship. Can you imagine that even though I was not a Britney fan and my knowledge of her music was, if not zero, then one definitely, I still listen to this biography. I do need to point out though that unlike all the other books that I mentioned here, this book was ghost written. Okay, now comes the book that I, just like When Giants Walk the Earth, that I didn't finish. However, I didn't finish the book because it's definitely for the die-hard fans of this band, and the book is the Mammoth Book of the Rolling Stones. If you are a huge, I mean a very huge the Rolling Stones fan, I do recommend going for it. If you are not a big Rolling Stones fan and don't know much about them, I recommend picking some other book about the Rolling Stones. This book was definitely oriented to the fans with all the details and facts and interviews that were aimed at the fans. And also I want to finish the non-fiction part with the book that I tried to read but failed. It's a non-fiction about music, is Oliver Sacks' Musicophilia. I won't say much about the book because I quit it. I just wanted to point it out. Maybe you're sure I quit the book when I reach 100 page, but maybe you love it, you are going to enjoy it. That's why I decided to mention. Now off to the fiction part. Okay, here are the fiction books. I selected 9. Well, technically there are 10 books over here, but one is a series with just 2 books so far. Okay, books with music themes are the books in which music plays, if not the central role, then at least it's an important subplot of the book. Just because there are a few moments where a character sings or plays an instrument, and if there's some music playing in the background, it doesn't mean that the book is music themed. Here are the books where the music is either a main theme, the main central theme, central plot point, or an important subplot. Let's go. Okay, the very first thing that comes to my mind is Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. I'm not going to pick up the separate tales, I'm going to pick his tales as a whole. Well, mostly because his books, they carry a strong musical spirit. There are tales where characters sing on music, instrumental or something. Also, Hans Christian Andersen is the one who said, when words fail, music speaks. Also, fact about his biography, he used to sing when he was younger, before he began writing fairy tales. Yeah, I definitely recommend picking up this book. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the books not only should have music as a central theme or a subplot, but also they have to carry a strong musical atmosphere. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, sorry. And Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, they do that very well. Next book you definitely heard about because it's BookTok famous or something, and it's everywhere, and this is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is akin to rock and metal biographies. This is sort of a biography of a fictional band called The Six. Or to be exact, Daisy Jones and the Six. They were a very famous band. They were successful, their album sold out, they were touring, and then in the middle of the tour, the band broke up. Years later, the band members, they tell all on why the band broke up, what happened, what led to it. And just like with the biographies of real bands, there's a rock and roll lifestyle to it. And this book has a very unique writing style, well, because it's mostly an interview. Yeah, it's one huge interview. It's not written like your traditional book. Next one is The Last Unicorn. So the book does have a lot of songs in it, the characters singing here. So this book is basically about a unicorn who lives her life in peace and then goes on an adventure when she hears that she's the last unicorn and she wants to save all the other unicorns. And music has a very strong atmosphere here, and like I said, the characters sing songs, just like J.R.R. Tolkien, which is going to be discussed a little bit later. The author writes some songs here. Also, fact about Peter S. Beagle, he does have a musical background and he participated in making music. Also, this book has an introduction, a foreword, by a famous fantasy author whose books I'm going to show here. Of course, the fantasy author and the book series is of course the Kingkiller Chronicle. The author is Patrick Rothfuss. Here's The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear. Still waiting for the Doors of Stone to come out. The third one. Not only these books are very atmospheric when it comes to music, not only it has scenes where characters sing and so on, not only it has musical distortions, but also this book features one unfinished song that takes the series, the entire series, into a whole another direction. Well, if you read the book, you definitely know what I'm... And the main character is a traveling actor / musician, and he plays a lute a lot, and he plays music in the tavern, so of course, these are heavily music themed. You know, I was rereading this book in December. It's one of my all-time favorite books. I decided to reread the English version, and then I realized that The Book Thief by Markus Zusak belongs here, well, because, like I said, I'm going to include books that have music as an important subplot, at least, and that's what happens in The Book Thief. One of the main characters plays an accordion, and it's present throughout the novel. It's important plot point here. And he also plays the accordion to Liesl, the main character. Yes, I know that this is not what this book is about. One of the characters plays the accordion and a very important role here. This isn't what comes to mind when people think about The Book Thief. However, I did notice that, and the accordion has an important role in the story. The next book is basically any Tolkien book. Anything related to Middle-earth. From Hobbit to Lord of the Rings to the Silmarillion and so on, but I decided to focus on only 2 books. Well, first I'm going to focus on the Silmarillion. Basically, this book is about the creation of Middle-earth and everything, and the whole universe was sung into existence. Music was definitely the beginning of everything in the Silmarillion. You have the entire singing battle in this book. And of course, the Silmarillion is the basis for the entire Nightfall in Middle-earth album by Blind Guardian, and it's absolutely really cool. And separately, I want to talk about Beren and Luthien. Yes, I know that the tale of Beren and Luthien is present in the Silmarillion. However, there's also a separate version. The reason I'm picking this up is because Luthien is elf maiden with a strong magical singing voice. She does so many great things because of her voice and so on. Basically, music is how she defeats baddies in this book. This is why I decided to focus on this tale separately. But in overall, any Tolkien book matters because characters have a gift for singing and making songs. Just like Hans Christian Andersen, J.R.R. Tolkien, he had some kind of musical spirit. And now next comes The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski, particularly the second book, Sword of Destiny, and particularly the chapter called A Little Sacrifice, well, because it focuses on the bard called Essie Daven and her story with Geralt and other characters. And finally, last but not least, this is more indie than everything else I've mentioned here, and this is Scott Pilgrim by Brian Lee O'Malley. This is the first book of the 6 books, or to be exact, graphic novels. Scott is a bassist in a band. Of course, there are rehearsals, and there's also the entire music band contest and everything, musical atmosphere. Even if you really love indie, particularly Canadian indie music, rock music, you are going to love it. And that's all. These are all the books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Oh, I forgot to mention the 4 books that I want to read. I haven't read these, but I really want to read. I have 2 non-fiction and the 2 fiction books. First one is Run to the Hills, Iron Maiden, the authorized biography by Mick Wall. yes, I like Iron Maiden. I'd love to read their biography. And Magnifico, the A to Z of Queen by Mark Blake. This one covers the Queen's songs from start to finish. And two fiction books I want to read. One is Songmaster by Orson Scott Card. The main character is a singer and he uses his singing skills to survive. And the second is I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman, because there's a pop rock band and the fans and the books that involve bands and the fans, they have my interest. Once again, thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.